Everybody, I think we're here and the time is 5:30, so we will call to order today's meeting of the Madison Plan Commission for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Welcome everybody, and Director Tuttle, would you start us off by calling the roll?
All right, good evening. Alder Field?
Johnson here.
Alder Glenn?
Here.
Alder Ugair?
Here.
Commissioner Bazine?
Here.
Commissioner Heck?
Here.
Commissioner McCahill?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
Commissioner Solheim?
Here.
Alternate Wisniewski?
Present.
Chair Gnom?
Here.
All right, we have everyone.
Thank you. So we will, as usual, start with information from our technical facilitator, Jesse Poole.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Panelists, use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public that have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with a committee, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We will start with item 1 on our agenda, which is time for public comment regarding items not on the formal Plan Commission agenda. Director Tuttle, did we have any registrants for public comment tonight?
There are no registrants on this item.
Okay, thank you. We next have disclosures and recusals. Members of the Plan Commission should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. I would note that in email, Alder Field let Megan and me know that he wants to disclose his employment with the University of Wisconsin at Madison regarding item 4, right? Which applies to 975 University Avenue in Alder District 8. And I think he will nod when I say that will not affect his vote on that matter, but wanted to share that disclosure. In addition to Alder Fields, does anyone else have any disclosures or recusals to make tonight? Commissioner McCahill, thanks.
I'm also employed at the university and it will not affect my vote.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you. We will move on to minutes of our last meeting on actually, we have 2 sets of minutes tonight. First, we have the minutes of our October 16th, 2025 special meeting. And I'll first ask if anyone has any corrections or additions to the October 16th minutes. Commissioner Sanders, thanks.
No correction here, but I would like to abstain from the vote since I was absent at that meeting.
Thank you. All right, if there's not other corrections or changes to the draft minutes that have been shared, could I ask for a motion in a second to approve the minutes? Alder Ugair, thank you. And Commissioner Solheim, thank you for the second. Any objection to unanimous approval for the October 16th minutes? All right, seeing none, that item is passed. So now we'll turn to the draft minutes for October 20th, 2025, our last regular Plan Commission meeting. Are there any additions or changes to those minutes, the draft minutes that have been shared? And if not, I would ask for a motion in a second on those minutes. Alder Ugair, thank you. Alder Glenn, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? And seeing none, is there any objection to unanimous approval for the October 20th, 2025 regular meeting minutes? All right, thank you. The minutes are passed. So our schedule of upcoming meetings, we have regular meetings in 2 weeks on Monday, November 17th. And then we have two regular meetings in December, Monday, December 1st and Monday, December 15th, both at 5:30 p.m. Our virtual meetings. So hopefully that's not a surprise to anyone. And I think we have the schedule of 2026 meetings out and maybe on our calendars. And if there's any discussion of that, we'll have time for that at the end of tonight's meeting. So we will move on to our routine business. We'll move on to our routine business, and we have a consent agenda tonight. So we will turn to that. It's been the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which staff members believe an application has been sufficiently reviewed to support approval with all the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments, and where the applicant accepts all those conditions and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to those items. And we also have the regular business items 2 and 3 on tonight's recommended consent agenda. So you can see before you the items for approval, and those are items 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9 on tonight's agenda. Of those items, I was going to ask if there are requests for separation. I see Alder Matthews' hand raised, so I can recognize you, Alder Matthews.
Hi, thank you. Could I separate item 3 from the consent agenda, please?
Sure. I think that seems appropriate.
Thank you.
We will pull that off. And so that would leave 2, 4, 7, 8, and 9. Any other requests for separation? All right. Seeing none, I will read into the record the consent items for approval. And we'll start with item 2. Item 2 is Legistar 90310, authorizing the execution of a declaration of public right-of-way for an extension of Driscoll Drive through a portion of city-owned land generally addressed as 135 Rustic Drive, and this is in Alder District 3. Then item 4 is a new business item, Legistar 90103, and this would be amending the City of Madison official map to remove mapped reservations for future public streets located on Block 2 of the University Addition to Madison in the northwest corner of Section 23, Township 7 North, Range 9 East in the City of Madison, on land generally addressed as 975 University Avenue, and this property is in Alder District 8. So item 7 on our agenda is Legistar 90173, and this would be amending the City of Madison official map to remove a mapped reservation for a future public street located in the west half of the northwest quarter of Section 31, Township 7 North, Range 10 East in the City of Madison on land addressed as 1201 Moreland Road in Alder District 14. Item 8 is Legistar 90174, creating Section 28.022-00729 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 1223 through 1241 Moreland Road from SR-C1, Suburban Residential Consistent 1 District, to A, Agricultural District. This is also in Alder District 14. Finally, item 9 is Legistar 90019, approving a certified survey map of property owned by the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District located at 1201 through 1241 Moreland Road in Alder District 14. those consent items have been read, and so we will open the public hearing and close the public hearing on those items and move to a vote. Could I ask for a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda tonight? Alder Glenn, thank you. Commissioner Solheim, thank you. Is there any objection to unanimous approval for our consent agenda? Right, seeing none, the consent agenda is passed. So thank you. And now we will jump back into the other agenda items. So we'll start with item 3, which is Legistar 90545, amending the records, including maps and databases of the street address numbers and street names by the city engineer referred to in sections 10.34 Madison General Ordinances by changing the name of a 250-foot-long isolated portion of Ruskin Street on the north side of Commercial Avenue to Huxley Street, and this is in Alder District 12. So I think we would normally have a staff presentation. Megan, if we could ask for a brief presentation of this item.
Sure, Chair. I'm happy to tee this up, but I'll also note that Jeff Kwame is here from the city's engineering division and is the person responsible for overseeing activities related to street renaming. So very briefly, the item that's in front of you is an item that was referred ultimately for recommendation to the Board of Public Works regarding the renaming of a portion of Ruskin Street. And you can see from the documentation that this is an area where, in coordination with development in the broader Oscar Mayer area, part of Ruskin Street was officially remapped to align with Huxley Street to the north. And therefore, as a result of that development, building the street in that location, the recommendation is to rename the southern portion of Ruskin Street consistent with the remainder of Huxley Street. So I'll let Jeff Kwame weigh in if there's anything I missed there, and happy to have him help answer any questions the commission may have.
Thanks. Megan, before you mute, this would be an item where the Plan Commission is advisory to the Board of Public Works, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Welcome, Jeff. Oh.
Good evening. Yeah, as Megan had gone through, Huxley Street was officially mapped where it is at its current location. Lincoln Capital has done the development. They recorded the certified survey map in order to effectuate the relocation of Huxley Street. At one time, Ruskin Street was pointed toward the north. Maybe I can share here. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, all right. So originally, Ruskin Street was here. There was a possible extension that would have connected up to this location where Ruskin intersects Ross Street. The official mapping changed where this was going to align, going to the northeast, connecting to Huxley Street in its current location. One of the reasons, or one of the items here at hand is the extension of Ruskin Street here with this new alignment is going to be permanently detached from its any possible connection to Ruskin Street. And also any connection is extremely unlikely because up in this area, this is now park that the city now owns. This is all wetland in this area. So it's not even feasible to construct a road through a protected wetland area. And so we do in our policy state that roads that are continuous in a general direction, which is, this is all generally in a north-south direction, and it can have, and we recognize these little changes in direction as they go, that it be one street name. And so that's what we're effectuating here. and then trying not to leave behind Ruskin Street. Also, as time goes on, this is better wayfinding for the general public to have one street name that goes the full length, and also for E911 response so that we have a consistent street name. And that's basically why we're proposing to rename this small portion of Ruskin Street. The unfortunate thing is it does result in some address changes for these parcels here and here. They'll retain the same numbers, but the street names will change. City engineering effectuates that. We set up with the United States Postal Service for automatic forwarding for at least a year. Then we just need to have an effective date.
Thanks. So Jeff, how long or when was Huxley Street constructed?
It is just, they have just poured the curb as of last Friday. And so they'll be paving probably later this week or early next week, and the connection will be there.
Thank you. I will, if you can hang around, I think we do have some registrants on this item, so we will move to the public hearing. I will open the public hearing on this item, and I'll ask Megan if you can walk us through the registrant list.
Okay, this evening we have a couple of registrants on this item, none of who are here wishing to speak tonight. So I'll read their names into the record. We have Don Lindsay of District 12 registered in opposition, Chet Hermanson of District 12 registered in opposition, Brenda K. Klecker of District 12 registered in opposition, and Jennifer Arglander of District 12 registered in opposition. And that's all we have, Chair.
Thanks, Megan. I will think I will close the public hearing since the registrants registered but are not necessarily available. And then I will ask the commission if they have questions for staff, and Alder Matthews obviously are able to participate on the commission as well. Alder Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. Question for staff. Do we have the number of businesses that will be affected who currently have a Ruskin Street address?
Roughly, there's one business on the east side. There is a telecom communications tower on the east side. There's a Quonset hut on the east side. That is, I believe, used for storage. It's sublet by those who sublease that. On the west side, I'm aware of there's a towing operation. There is the owner or the leasee of the lands runs his operation out of there, and I believe there's a tree trimming operation out of that side as well.
So 4 businesses that would presumably incur some expense to change all of their media, whatever methods they're using for advertising their location.
Right. Yep. And it's an unfortunate thing, but we do change addresses not frequently, but on occasion, and that's one of the things that they unfortunately have to deal with.
And Jeff, you can perhaps refresh my mind, because I saw you recently about this at the Board of Public Works meeting, since I'm a member there. As I recall, it was the imminence of moving forward with completing that street connection that led us to the position that even though Plan Commission is in an advisory capacity, it ended up that given the timing of the respective meetings and the imminence of that action, that it made sense to go ahead and approve it at the Board of Public Works, which had the lead, and then pick up the recommendation from Plan Commission later. Do I have that right as far as the sort of unusual timing here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thanks, Alder Yeager. Alder Glenn, thanks.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this is inevitable and has to be, or this is something that is voted on? Two different things.
Yeah, from the standpoint of the way that you name streets and then for having continuity of a street name, I would say that it is very important to have this continuity and one consistent street name for the full length of a road that goes in the same general direction. 911 prefers to have it that way, and it is a policy that is adopted by the Board of Public Works. And so I put it out as a resolution because in the past, street name changes do go out as resolutions just to be informative and to make a clear record of the street name change.
Thank you. And one more question. At what point were businesses or community notified that this change was imminent to be happening?
We did have discussions. I had notes from back in 2023 when we were meeting with the owners at that time that there would be a street name change, which would result in an address change at that point, and that when the road was finished, that we would provide notification at that point, and then effectuate a street name change.
Okay, so since 2023, the subject has been coming up for the businesses and the residents.
In 2023, yes, I have record of my notifying them at a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Jeff, if this were to go through, which it seems like is already happened because Board of Public Works has already approved it. What would be the timing of the address change? I understand you said the road is happening soon. Would you have any idea of when you would, when the 1 year period would start that the Postal Service will forward mail?
The resolution has right now an effective date of December 1st. And so then at that effectual date, then USPS would be doing all the forwarding. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Alder Matthews.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for separating this item. Just for a little bit of context for the separation, tonight is the Sherman Neighborhood Association meeting, which kind of oversees this area. And the folks who are in opposition, I think, are almost all not very tech savvy folks, and they're in person at their neighborhood meeting. And I had a question for if there could be any kind of context of the Ruskin like strips as they exist, because even the picture that shows that Jeff showed us, that upper portion is also disconnected from the full length of Ruskin. That's to the other side of Aberg. Right, I think it's Aberg. So I guess, and so some of what I've heard from the folks who are affected by this, and then the people in their neighborhood who, you know, are reaching out in support of them, is some confusion and the seemingness of this being potentially arbitrary, because there's already, like, for decades, I guess, right, there's been this little stump of Ruskin, and then from Roth, there's another little stump that's kind of like, I don't know if it's Ruskin all the way around, but it's like a little circle. And then further up, there's the main like force of the street. So I totally understand the like wayfinding and confusion of keeping it the same now that Huxley runs through there. But could anyone maybe speak to the right, like, since there's already been kind of a confusing situation with those Ruskin streets for years and years, you know, how much more of an issue would it be now that Huxley's running through there, if that makes sense?
Well, I can speak to that portion of Ruskin that's intersects Roth and then goes to the north, and then it like cuts off and then goes up to Aberg. I believe that happened when that shopping center was put in, and that probably would have been, that was, I believe, cops way back in the day. And so I'm sure before my time, but that would have been the reasoning for that. And just as a guess out of what was occurring at that point, they probably did want to change the addresses for all those residential folks to the south and change the name. And so they probably left it as is. But like I said, as part of the original document for the leases that are down where this stub position is located, there was at one time a reservation of a access easement that was going to go up there, but the fact of the matter is you do have the wetlands, and it's that portion to the south is not going to connect. I can't speak for what's going to happen with that section of Ruskin that's north of Roth as we do redevelopment in the future. In those areas that are to the north there. I don't know if that's going to go through. I don't know the neighborhood development plan for that area personally. But you know, I would imagine that there could be a chance of that reconnecting. I just don't know what the neighborhood plan has up in that area.
Thank you, Jeff. That makes sense. And I guess that's all my questions, unless anyone from planning has.
Yeah, I will note, and I appreciate Jeff mentioning our other neighborhood plans. I do believe that in our neighborhood plans for that area, there are indications of the future reconnection of Ruskin Street to the north towards Aberg from where it bends to become Stevens Street in that small area that you're referring to, as well as for potential east-west connections between Sherman and Huxley in the future to create more of a grid in that area. That ultimately would be dependent upon the redevelopment of those properties or some kind of land division that would cause those streets to be reconnected and rededicated. Separate from that area, though, the area to the south of Roth Street where we're talking, our plans indicate the connection being made between Commercial and Roth via the pathway that Jeff showed and is on the documentation for the street renaming, ultimately with that portion of Ruskin connecting to Huxley as a continuous connection. So I think that was not only because of that consistency with the plan, but I think Jeff mentioned earlier, that is realigning that street to become more of a southerly portion of Huxley versus a southerly portion of a future Ruskin Street or a future reconnection to Ruskin Street.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Discussion? Are we ready to move for a motion? Which I think would be we would make a recommendation to the lead, right, Megan? Yeah.
That's correct.
Glenn. Thank you.
Did you say Alder Glenn?
Yeah, Alder Glenn. Yep.
Okay, because
thanks.
I just want to say, I know since you asked about discussion, being a lifelong North Sider and East Sider, and I think all these decisions as we're building get really complicated for commissioners or alders or people that live in the area. When you see it, you know, like we know empathy is easier when you can touch something in yourself, right? And when I'm reading through the letters, I really do, you know, struggle with small business that, you know, when you think of stationery, you think, well, yeah, okay, they have to reprint stationery. When we're talking about budgets and the way things are right now and, you know, small business, I get it. And I always feel bad because you want to see things be built and you want to see change, and then change is hard. And then I think Julia's question was really great. Like, but it's already broken. Can't we just leave it alone? Just leave it for that, right? Like, but it was already this way. And that makes it hard when people have to change their address. But just because it wasn't great, I think all of us who come to these committees and really give our time on an evening, a Monday evening, and alders and commissioners who want what's best for the city aren't here to make it hard on people. It's to be the ones to step up to make it better. And it has to get fixed. I wish I wasn't here to have to give my approval to be the one to say it does and be the one of change. And I think in the long run, people will appreciate the change when they look back at why it makes sense. So, yeah, change is hard. And sometimes even these little areas for a little piece of a street are harder than, you know, 1,200 units or something somewhere. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thanks. Alder Matthews.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Carmela, and I'm realizing that I might just have to also do it at council, and that is okay. I'm sorry, everyone. But so the part of the other reason why I asked for this to be separated and why I'm here is that I know there is a documented meeting with the two kind of like, at least from my understanding, main business owners. I think the one side subleases out to like 15 or 16 like subleases, but it's mostly one person who owns that. And then the other side also mostly has one person. And they're both in opposition. And I'm sure they've definitely also been pretty vocally in opposition of all of the rest of the development around the Huxley yards. And this is just kind of like, you know, I think someone said it, there's a lot of different sayings, right? Someone I think said like a drop in the bucket, or I know I've been saying like the straw that breaks the camel's back, just because there have been a lot of, especially with the easements that they used to have with that area, they've had a lot of issues throughout this period of development. And one other piece of context that I think is important, although I don't necessarily know that it changes anyone's thoughts, is that when a lot of the main kind of decision making that kind of set into place this final decision that's mostly for informational purposes, I do believe it was during the period of time between late fall of 2022 and early 2023, where there was not a District 12 alder at all. And so, you know, that is also, I think, something to consider here. And I just wanted to, you know, state the financial hardships that these folks have had. Like, this is just a small piece, and I'm hoping that it won't be too bad for them. But having met with them both, their businesses are very analog. So I know all the messages and emails have said, like, you know, having to inform their customers and have them update their records and stationery and stuff that seems maybe minuscule in this day and age. For them, I do believe that it is going to be a little bit more of a lift. But again, I think it kind of just speaks to being the end of the process. And even in that 2023 meeting they had, I'm sure they were, I would imagine that they were a lot more concerned about the other pieces that have come since. And that, you know, I could imagine them not keeping this, you know, planned on their calendar, although maybe they should have been. But thank you. I just wanted to put that.
I think we may be ready to move to motion on this item. Commissioner Solheim, thank you.
Thank you. I will move that the Plan Commission make a recommendation of approval for Legistar item 90310, or sorry, 90545, to rename a section of Ruskin Street to Huxley Street.
Thanks. Is there Alderfield? Thanks for the second. There'd be time for discussion on a pending motion. I see Alder Pritchett's hand raised. You have the floor.
Yes, I have a quickie question. And the question is, are you familiar with the history? This is on the west side. And the street in name is Doncaster. Doncaster begins on the east side of the Beltline. And it continues under the Beltline over to Doncaster. Again, it connects over there. Now, it's similar to the wetland that you're describing, meaning that there's, you know, there are no residents there. The Beltline is the same, holds true for the same thing. So the question again is there history? And what will make this change better? Especially given the statement that Alder Matthews made concerning many of the residents there not being tech savvy. I'm concerned about not only some of the residents not being tech savvy, but I'm also concerned about wayfinding. Let's say, for example, paramedics, the police are needed. I'm also concerned about how Google Maps work and how would that make or facilitate a change. So, as I said, you know, I do understand, and believe it or not, it's not as easy as people think it's going to be. You know, if you move from one house to another, you change address. But for those individuals who have to do this, and you always forget something. So I do have concerns about it. And I go back to the question again, what will make this better? How do we justify making this particular change? What are we to gain from doing it? And what do we lose if we don't do it? Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Pritchett. I appreciate the comment. I'm going to ask if Jeff and maybe others on staff could follow up with you outside the Plan Commission meeting on the Doncaster question, but I do appreciate the analogy. Unless, you know, Jeff, if you have something you want to share briefly, that would be fine too.
Just briefly, this is different because you would have a street name change right in the middle of a stretch of road with no intersection or anything like that to show what the change is. And so it would lead to some confusion, most definitely. And then also the fact that it is connecting to Huxley and extending Huxley all the way down, it is not going to connect back to Ruskin versus when other ones were cut by the belt line or whatever, they did align. And so that's a little bit of the difference in the situation as well.
Thanks, Jeff. I could come back, there is a pending motion that's been seconded. Is there any discussion from the commissioners on that motion? Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I wanted to offer an observation from my own neighborhood in High Stand Park here on the east side, where there is a kind of awkward and discontinuous street naming pattern along the same linear street that changes its name randomly in the middle of the neighborhood. On either side, there are connecting streets that you can access the interior of the neighborhood from, and it has confused us. It has confused delivery people. It is a pain when one street suddenly becomes a different street, and you don't actually notice that unless you're watching the street signs. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to forestall that similar confusion from happening over and over and over again in the future. So that's all I would offer from personal observations over here. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderfield. All right, I think I will call a vote. Is there objection to unanimous approval from the Plan Commission on this item? All right. Seeing none, we'll record the item as passed, and I appreciate the conversation and discussion. I do think these are, as Alder Matthews said, or as Alder Glenn said, change is hard, and if there are things we can do to make it less hard, we want to do those. We will move to item 5, which is Legistar 89236, relating to the property at 130 West Wilson Street in Alder District 4. This is consideration of a conditional use in a UMX, urban mixed use district, for a new building with greater than 6 stories, and consideration of a conditional use pursuant to Madison General Ordinances, section 28.134, paren 3, for projections into the Capitol View preservation limit to allow construction of a 16-story apartment building with 320 units. I think I see Planner Punt, and we'll ask for a staff presentation. Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, just really quickly, I'm sorry, just for the record, I just want to note the address is 139 West Wilson Street. So,
did I say that wrong? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just
all right.
make sure that
I meant to say 139. All right. Thanks.
All right. So, yes, thank you, Chair. This is for 139 West Wilson Street. And for this proposal requesting the 2 conditional uses, staff has noted in the Plan Commission staff report that standards 1 through 6, 8, and 16 are applicable to the requests. Staff believes that the Commission can find standards 1, 2, 4, and 6 to be met, but has provided additional analysis regarding standards 3, 5, 8, and 16. I'm going to start with standards 3 and 5. Staff have concerns regarding the number of proposed units and the number of future residents on a parcel as narrow as this one is with a single street frontage. While the density of dwelling units and bedrooms is considerably higher than many other buildings in the area, mathematical density is not a distinct consideration for this. But related to the standards 3 and 5, the site and site design have to be found adequate to support that number of residents, and the impacts of those density and intensity of development should be considered, especially as it pertains to those standards. A wider site would allow greater flexibility in design and accommodation of loading, car share, resident move-in and move-out, deliveries, trash pickup. And with this site, the site is only 66 feet wide. So that becomes a major consideration due to that narrowness. All of that said, staff have recommended a number of conditions of approval, providing a management plan that adequately addresses many of those issues I just raised and others that were raised in the staff report, meeting the bicycle parking requirements, working with traffic engineering to address many of those access issues, especially how they pertain to the Wilson Street cycle track, which all traffic onto the site would have to cross. And then to provide a satisfactory transportation demand management plan. With all of those conditions, staff believes that the Plan Commission could find both Standard 3 and Standard 5 met. Regarding Standard 8, the UDC has made an advisory recommendation to approve the proposal with conditions. A previous version of this proposal had been to UDC on numerous occasions, really. But the applicant team and the architect has made a number of changes, and UDC has made an advisory recommendation to approve. And then finally, regarding Standard 16, which pertains to Capitol View height projections, staff believes that the standard can be found met. The projection is somewhat smaller than many of the other recently approved projections. It's set somewhat far back from both the street and from the lake side of the building. And staff has also recommended a condition of approval requiring the applicant to continue to work with staff to further reduce the scale of that projection as much as possible. So when considering the proposed conditions of approval and that short discussion of standards 3, 5, 8, and 16, as well as the discussion in the staff report, staff believes that it is possible to find standards 3 and 5 to be met, and that 8 and 16 are met. If the commission does find that all applicable standards, including 3 and 5, are met, it should approve the request. However, if the commission finds that either 3, 5, both of them, or any other standards are not met, staff recommends that the commission clearly communicate those findings with regard to that decision. In the case that the commission does not find one or more standards to be met, it can either place the request on file or refer that request to a future meeting with direction to the applicant to make the appropriate changes related to those specific standards of approval. With that, I will turn it back over to you, and am happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Colin. We do have registrants for this item, so we'll open the public hearing. To be fair to everyone, each registrant will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll try to interrupt briefly to give you a warning when you're close to the time limit. I think, Megan, you can walk us through the list, and I think we do have pooled time for the development team. So.
Right, that's correct, Chair. We are first going to hear from our applicant team. So we will hear from Doug Paul, representing Torque Companies, and Randy Alexander, Alexander of the applicant team. They have requested to pool their time for a total of 6 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
I have a lot of slides, but I'm not going to go through them all. My goal is just to show you some of our work on the site plan and to show you our effort in creating a functional service area for the building that will accommodate the residents' needs with regards to deliveries and drop-off and all the other vehicular traffic that would be generated by this building. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, you can see the existing conditions of the current context of the area. And then the next slide, please. You'll see our site plan. There's a few details here for the site features, but one of the things you can see here is that we've created kind of a traffic calming mural on the ground. And so the first roughly 80, 90 feet of the site are dedicated to kind of a flexible circulation zone. Beyond that, to the right is a dedicated pedestrian area for access to bike parking, and then some amenity spaces for the tenants. So on the left would be Wilson Street, and on the right would be John Nolan Drive. And then just to kind of clarify the operational spaces here, I've created some scenarios that show various loading situations. So if you go to the next slide, we can see kind of like a delivery and drop-off scenario where an Amazon truck might be parked there on the top of the page, and maybe behind it is an Uber or a Lyft driver. And then you can see under the building, there's a bunch of area that's hatched called a flexible loading zone. And that could accommodate another vehicle coming into the site and turning around and exiting, or some of the vehicles that are loading or unloading right now. So that would be one scenario where our site design accommodates that kind of traffic. You can go to the next slide. The next slide shows kind of like a move-in scenario. And Randy, I don't know if you're here, but if not, some of the operational guidelines for how move-in and move-out operations would go are printed on this slide. And rather than kind of like a single move-in day, there would be a staggered move-in cycle of like 6 months, right? So this would go from April through September. There'd be 16 units per month turning over. And then there would be dedicated time for moving in and out for new tenants. So this would be a very controlled operation. So you could see a moving vehicle fits here and doesn't totally disturb the site operations. Other vehicles can still come and go here while that's going on. Next slide. And then the last slide just shows the scale of a garbage truck coming onto the site, picking up the trash, and then leaving. So that's kind of how we look at the site operations. And our goal again was to use the mural to create pedestrian safety, but also leave the space kind of open and flexible so that these different traffic patterns could function without being overly constrained by like bollards or things like that. All right, next slide, please. There's floor plans of the building, so there's different levels and they each have kind of a different floor plan. You can go to the next slide. There's the upper floor and the roof. So we've got a community room on the top floor and that faces the lake on the right hand of the slide here. Next slide would be the kind of typical unit layouts. So these are smaller, these are kind of like micro units, but they're also upscale units, but they're pricing $1,000 less than a typical one bedroom in a new building in Madison. Next slide, please. So these are the elevations on Wilson Street on the right and John Nolan on the left. And you can see on the Wilson Street elevation, kind of this 4-story expression with this printed glass, illuminated glass feature. And that shows kind of like an artistic element at the front entry there. And then we created kind of like a double height glazing at the top of the building to create kind of a distinct top. So the next slides show the kind of the elevations that are next to the Adria and the Element buildings. So these are kind of more or less covered by the neighboring buildings. But we do create similar bottom, middle, and top features with these. And then the last couple of slides here will show you some of the renderings. So you can see how the building fits in with the other buildings in the context of the site and the neighboring buildings. And from in the next slide, you can see from the John Nolan Drive side, kind of some of the other context of the city. And
we have about 30 seconds left, Doug, if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, without Randy here, he was going to talk about kind of the motivation behind the project and the reasons kind of why they've decided to do this project this way. And I can try to answer any questions that you might have about the development and why we're doing it without parking and things like that. But he's better at talking about that than me, so I'll stick with the architectural stuff. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Okay. I think at this point, Randy, we can come back to comments when we get to commissioner questions of our speakers, and we'll continue through the list. Is that what you'd prefer, Chair?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I think that's right. I think I do see Randy, so maybe we can, if we do have specific questions for him, we can get to those.
Okay, that sounds good. Our next registered speaker is Fernando Escobar. District is unknown, but representing 133 West Wilson, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everyone, I guess, participating in tonight's meeting on a Monday especially. I would like to formally, obviously, oppose this development. I think that there are a number of design and code issues that need to be resolved and just have not at this point in juncture without getting into the weeds and going, one by one. One of them that just sticks out to me is having that many units with no parking. Logistically is going to be a nightmare. So with that, I'll just keep it brief.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Peter Osland of District 4, representing Bassett District of the Capital Neighborhoods, and registered in opposition wishing to speak.
There it is. The unmute button showed up finally. I'm here today on behalf of the Bassett Neighborhood Steering Committee. In our written comments, we've detailed concerns we have regarding this proposal, in particular the inadequate provisions to provide access and circulation for vehicles that will be servicing the building. The neighborhood brought up these concerns with the development team at our first meeting 3 years ago, and every time we've gotten together since that time, the same concerns have been raised. And despite some modest changes to the plan, the basic inadequacy of the entry drive remains. The proposal has been to UDC multiple times over the years, and commissioners there have expressed their concern regarding the servicing of the building at each of those meetings, including their most recent meeting in October. The report that planning staff has prepared for you on this proposal dedicates a full 2 pages to the lack of provisions for adequate access and internal circulation improvements for pedestrians, bicyclists, public transit, delivery, and service vehicles. In the 2+ decades of my involvement with neighborhood consideration of development proposals, I can't recall a staff report which dedicated this much discussion to a single topic. Traffic engineering has also expressed similar concerns that state that they see few solutions. The opening of the Adria building just to the west of this proposal demonstrated traffic engineering's concerns with delivery and ride-shared vehicles using the cycle track as a loading zone. But unlike other buildings on Wilson Street, the Adria has entries to their parking garage in 2 locations, on Wilson Street and also on Henry Street. And there is also a posted loading zone on Henry Street. The staff report provides a comparison of other residential buildings on East and West Wilson. The report does not compare the street configurations. In the 100 block of East Wilson along the south side where the residential buildings are located, there are 2 24-hour loading zones, a passenger loading zone, and a handicap loading zone. There is also metered parking on both sides of the block. In the 100 block of West Wilson, there is limited metered parking on the north side of the block and no parking on the south side, and there are no loading zones of any sort along this block.
Peter, you have about 30 seconds left. Thanks.
Excuse me?
Oh, you have about 30 seconds left, if that's okay. Thanks.
The neighborhood has expressed similar concerns about each of the residential proposals on West Wilson. The opening of the Adria demonstrated that our concerns are well-founded. It's clear the proposal before you today does not meet standards 3 and 5, and we urge you to deny the request of the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for coming out.
Okay, our next speaker is Ann Monks of District 4, registered in opposition.
Ann, I think you're unmuted on our side. If you can, there we go. Yep.
In neighborhood meetings, the developer has assured us that property management will make sure the many vehicles visiting the building will use the narrow driveway and not block the sidewalk, the adjacent cycle track, or the street right of way. They have assured us the micro units will be available for $1,600 a month, which is $200 less than the advertised price for small units down the street on East Washington in a upscale building. As recently as the last neighborhood meeting, they said Epic workers are a target market for this project. As you decide how to vote, please carefully consider if the valuable Wilson Street right-of-way will be protected and if housing created is likely to be truly affordable and even healthy for people in future years. Wilson Street is an important downtown roadway serving many purposes. A two-way cycle track runs along the frontage. Wilson Street is the only westbound corridor on the south side of the square. It provides access to many government services, including the Dane County Jail, gets deliveries on that. It used to get deliveries when it was possible on that side. I assume that will happen again. Public visitors have to access in this area. There's emergency and law enforcement vehicles that have to use this corridor. City officials should think long and hard before risking safe use of this right-of-way by approving this project and placing a burden that's more appropriate in an alley. Consider how often large garbage, recycling, and service vehicles are needed for 320 units of housing. In most of your neighborhoods, that would be hard to imagine this kind of 66-foot lot with 320 units. If people can find an open driveway, they will have to back out across the cycle track where bikes can easily be traveling 30 miles an hour downhill. Not to mention moves, deliveries, transportation, and many other services for the building and its residents. There's a good chance that on-site management would have to always be policing this, and even there would have to be police enforcement to seriously not have problems with what's needed to service this building. That's not something people want to live in. Everyone here agrees that the community needs more affordable housing. I believe we also need more livable housing for people over time. Will this project's micro units even be affordable? I don't think so. A high-rise building like this on a narrow—
And you have about 20 seconds left if you could wrap up.
Build and maintain. The rent on a square foot basis will be very expensive. This will be troubled housing. As soon as the housing market is got enough housing units, this will be among the last stuff, and it's that gets rented, and it's very expensive to maintain and keep up a building like this. I can tell you.
And thanks for your comments. Thank you.
Okay. The rest of our registrant list for this item tonight includes Terrence Wall, registered in opposition and available to answer questions. Terrence lists district unknown, but I'll note is the developer of the neighboring property that was mentioned earlier. Phil Hees from District 4, registered in support and available to answer questions. Jonathan Cooper of District 4, registered in opposition. Nicholas Davies of District 15, registered in support. Josh Olson, District Unknown, registered in support. And Daniel Ruiz of District 4, registered in opposition. Those last four speakers, Jonathan, Nicholas, Josh, and Daniel, registered not wishing to speak.
Thanks, Megan. Yep, thank you. We will, while our public hearing is open, are there questions from the commissioners for any of our registrants? Alder Field.
Thank you, Chair. A question for the developer team. Hey, Doug. I am wondering, since site access and traversing on and off of the property is one of the points of concern for members of the community, if you can talk a little more about the move-in plan. You showed us the diagram, which was helpful, and you mentioned that it would take place over quite an amount of time. Can you talk about how you plan to schedule or otherwise work with residents moving in so that they are staged in a way that there's not too much crowding at the move-in point and the couple of loading zones at the building? How do you plan to manage that?
So the leases will be available starting in April, and they'll be staggered through September. So leasing, they won't be signing leases that all start on the same day. When a unit turns over, the move-in and move-out times will be scheduled. You'll be assigned a time slot of 2 or 4 hours for your scheduled move-out time or move-in time. So it'll be a very carefully managed process. The assumption is that there'd be about 16 units turning over in a month. So that would be about 4 changeovers per week. Okay. And, I think that's a manageable quantity of people to organize.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to that, also kind of on the site access piece, is I'm wondering if you all have intentions for how you plan to manage parking in those loading zones for deliveries, for example, or other purposes. And do you have a way to make sure that nobody's going to be camping out in those spots, occupying them for too long, given that that's going to be coveted real estate, so to speak?
I think any building manager would struggle to make sure that somebody doesn't just block their loading zone. And so I do think there'd be enforcement, probably needed to make sure that there's room, that people aren't just parking in those zones. Our goal is, the report says that there's 3 loading zones. I tried to indicate on my diagram that there was more space, right? That there's more room on the surface of this site than just those loading zones. And so I think it's a combination of just providing adequate amounts of space for the amount of traffic we think we're going to see, and then some management through enforcement of making sure people aren't just staying in those zones too long.
Yeah, that's good for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alder Field. Alder Uguer, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Question first for Mr. Paul, and then one for Mr. Alexander. Doug, carrying on the issue of access, you've kind of generated the numbers here that looking at what would seem manageable with a kind of maximum of 4 move-in, move-outs per week. I suppose that would mean both potentially a move out and a move in. So let's say 8 transactions in a week during that concentrated period. But again, that's potentially 1 or 2 per day. Have you formed any conclusions about the maximum number of types of access? If we add up the move in, move out, which probably take longer, but we add in the trash collection visits, the deliveries and so forth. This sounds like a likely occupancy group that might make heavy use of food delivery and package delivery and so forth. Have you kind of had an opportunity to quantify the likely high point per day or something like that that would give us some comfort on the ability to manage it?
Sure. And so I think one of the things to think about too is there's, because there's not parking here, does not mean that there's more food delivered here, right? Everybody who lives in any building downtown gets packages and food delivered to them. They don't always drive away to go eat or get things, right? So you have to consider too the lack of additional traffic caused by parking, people coming in and out of a parking area. And then you should consider too that the sites to the north and south have each one loading zone on their surface, right? Where we have 3, maybe I would consider it more like 4 or 5, right? So you've got your incidental daily you've got your daily trash delivery or every other day trash, pickup, sorry. And then you've got more or less organized parcel delivery, right? They don't just come randomly. They kind of bring a truckload of things. Our conversation with FedEx and UPS was that they might even use the Henry Street loading zone and deliver packages to both the Adria and this building at the same time. So they might not even use our site for that. And then you've got kind of the wild card, which are food and deliveries and car services. A bit difficult to predict what the demand for that is, but again, we're trying to use the square footage of the site that's left over as efficiently for that as possible. And I think we've done a good job of accommodating a lot more pickup spaces than other projects have.
Thank you, Doug. And quick question for Randy, maybe not a quick answer. I definitely want to give Randy the chance to expound on why the decision not to have any parking.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
All right. Good evening. I've been doing this for about 50 years, urban redevelopment. And, I only want to do this project to create more affordable housing downtown for those that otherwise couldn't afford to live there, but want to live there or need to live there because that's where their employment is. And there are a huge number of people now that don't own a car, don't want to own a car, or can't afford to own a car. And one of the things that is hard to comprehend is, what will the vehicle management on this site be versus your typical development site downtown when you don't have any parking garage for people constantly coming and going from that garage onto Wilson Street. It's going to be bicycles and pedestrians and service vehicles. But and the way for me to create that affordable housing is high density and elimination of parking. And I absolutely believe that, and we have actually proven it in our rental markets downtown on the units that we're leasing now, that there is a big demand for this type of housing. And we expect that this will be a solid 30% below what is coming on stream now or has recently come on stream that is comparable quality housing. Downtowns should be where density is. They should be walkable and bikeable. And not to have on-site parking is not in our minds a detriment, but is an attribute. And for those that really need access to a car that they would actually drive themselves, we have a ride-sharing program or on-demand program where we can keep the cars under lease in the Dane County ramp. And when somebody needs a vehicle like that, it's readily available to them.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate that. No further questions for now.
Thanks all to you, Garrett. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. This would probably be for Randy or perhaps Doug. I didn't see on the plan a management office. Do you plan to have on-site management?
Randy, you are unmuted, so feel free to answer.
Okay. So the top floor penthouse serves as both a management office, a co-share working space for the residents in the building, and a club room. And we purposely designed it that way so that people coming into the building would actually, have the management right there if they're working in that space or they're using that space. Obviously we'll have heavy security in any building that we do. But full-time management would be operating in the structure.
Okay. One of the, continuing on the concerns about circulation and loading zone in that area and cars parked there or blocking space, do you think that can be effectively managed by a manager that's on the 16 or that's on the top floor? Can that be seen and managed if there is a situation, if someone's blocking the cycle track, if someone is, stuck in the loading zone? Do you think that can be managed from there?
Yes, I can. And, we're used to managing downtown properties, so we understand, how parking can be abused all the time. And it's a combination of due diligence by the manager and also a certain amount of signage. And the building will be covered in security cameras. So even if you're the manager on the first floor, those monitors will indicate anybody that's violating any of the policies or procedures. Or any city ordinances related to the bike track. Just the type of housing it is, we expect the manager to have empathy for people on bikes and pedestrians and not so much on the automobile. So that'll be the culture of the building, and we think we can manage it effectively.
Okay, so those cameras and screens will be visible, if they're in the management office on the upper floor, they'll be able to see the loading area in the cycle track?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they'll be able to see all aspects of the exterior of the building and the interior common areas.
Okay, thank you. I have another follow-up question. Given, all of the questions about the loading zone, as you were revising the plans, did you consider at all expanding that loading zone area, further into, say, where some of the indoor parking is now, just to make the turning radius perhaps a little bit easier?
Yeah, we did significant revisions over earlier applications and to allow vehicles to actually turn around on site so they're not backing out on Wilson Street. We actually, we at one point had ride on-demand cars for our residents located underneath the building at that east elevation, and that has been removed and will be placed in a rental situation in like the Dane County ramp. And those spaces now have been opened up strictly for loading and unloading. We cannot utilize any more space within the building itself because it's dedicated for mostly bicycle parking and a little bit of other service amenities for the building that need to be on that ground floor.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Glenn.
Hello. I have a few questions. I think the developer or Randy will be able to answer. So how many units? I think it said 316 on your application.
334.
320, Randy.
324. Yeah.
320 units and 324 bedrooms.
Okay, that's what the difference was. Okay. So you were saying April to September, which is 6 months. So we got about 50 people moving in a month. Correct?
No. So over a 6 month period, we expect to turn over about 30% of the units on an annualized basis, maximum. And if you divide that out, that's about 16 apartments per month on average turnover, or about one turnover every 2 days. The other thing that really helps us is that this is not a new process for us. We do it now. We don't allow a resident that's leaving and a resident that's moving into that unit. There's a separation of 3 days. That allows us plenty of time to do any cleaning or any repairs, and allows an orderly appointment time for the person moving out and the person moving in, so they're not on top of one another. And we've learned this process by managing over 500 units downtown. And it works really, really well. And that's what we would implement on this building. So about an average of about 2 units, or 1 turnover every 2 days under that scenario.
Okay, I keep hearing you say turnover. So on the initial move-in, building's ready, you're only gonna occupy 30% in the first year?
Now we would expect 30% of the units would turn over, i.e. a new lease, and the old lease expiring and the person moving out. If you divide that out by the 6 months, it works out to be about 16 apartment units per month on average, or about 1 turnover every 2 days during those months.
Okay. Okay, I'll come back to that one. I'll listen in and come back. But let me get to the other one. So I see on the plan that it has 2 elevators. We're talking 16 floors, and you'll have 2 elevators going up in that. So for city, Colin, is that standard, normal? Does that seem low?
I think, sorry, I'll just note.
Or Megan, yes, Megan.
Well, we're in time for questions of registrants. Yeah, but we'll see if we can. That is kind of a code outside of zoning, but
okay, thank you. And then, so for parking, I heard you say about the Dane County ramp. So you have it set up for the Dane County ramp. This is set up that you'll be able to lease out stalls for the vehicles.
Yes.
Randy,
So
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Dane County Ramp has a policy of leasing excess stalls. Now, they haven't had any over the last 18 months or so because it's been under rehabilitation, and those stalls will become available again here, I believe, in early 2026. But we have leased them in the past, and they assured us they'll be available again. And we don't anticipate needing probably more than 5 to 10 stalls that would be released from the county. There's also additional parking, private parking available in the neighborhood downtown that's actually legal. There are spaces where current apartment buildings still have vacancies in parking with a fully leased building. And that kind of speaks a little bit to people giving up their automobile or not being able to afford it given where rent levels have gone.
Okay, so, and they're close by this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, because I guess I hear you, and I know that that we are moving towards that, and love the idea of this being affordable. As born and raised here, I just think of that area, and as someone who at one point worked at Department of Health Services, Public Health, CCB building, that it is like function at the junction down there for finding, and I park in Dane County Ramp, and thinking of it, what ends up happening is then people start hitting streets. The people that do have cars take over street parking for people who do come down there working, because there isn't ample parking in spaces for them close by. No one's thinking of others sometimes. And I just worry that's a 316 if 10%, 30 extra cars are on the street parking. And I get that, you know, somewhere has to be cut if you want to keep things affordable. I just think that it is going to be, I just worry about the chaos that could ensue with extra. And I hear people saying that as they're writing in. And I also know that, you know, to keep it affordable, something has to. I just, question that people just won't have cars is all. Do you think that, I think Nicole had asked about the underground with that and with management. I don't know. I need to think about my question. I'll come back because I have something there of around how we'll be able to make sure that, especially early on in it, that something can happen. So I'll come back. Thanks. I'm complete.
Thanks, Alder Glenn. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you. I don't know if the developer can answer this. I can ask it later from staff if they can't. But I heard in the testimony discussions about affordability, which is something that we don't get to consider unless the developer works with the city using affordable housing funds. So the question is, are you using City of Madison affordable housing funds for this development?
No, we are not seeking any kind of public subsidy.
Perfect. Thank you.
And
I vaguely remember this project from another meeting. It's just coming back from some of the public testimony. Can you refresh my memory? So this is in an area that doesn't require parking. That's part of an overlay that you're in. But do you have parking available? I thought those parkings were for like handicap or something like that. Do you have actually regular parking available on the site?
There is not parking available on the site. So
perfect. Yeah, that's good. I get it. Yeah, yeah. It's on some urban design thing that we can discuss with staff. But I just wanted to, make sure that there was not also a ramp here while there's a ramp across the street that is public parking.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hett.
Thank you. I'll take a stab at some of the questions that other commissioners have struggled to formulate and get answers to. But it's confusing. I'm trying to understand. The building, let's say, is completed, and you're going to have staggered leases. Does that mean that you're going to leave apartments empty for many months as you establish this staggered pattern? That seems unlikely. Or will you just have everybody could move in a vaguely staggered fashion in 1 month, but their leases would be for 14, 15, 16 months, so that in the future they're staggered? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, good question. There's a couple different ways to do it. I mean, as you go through your initial leasing, you lease it in stages, and we just don't allow a lease termination, all as an example on August 15th, which happens a lot in especially downtown student housing. This is not campus student housing. We believe that given its natural affordability and its amenities, that the resident will be flexible on move-in and move-out dates if they choose. And one of the ways to manage that is if we're in a lease-up period starting in June on the completion of the building, yes, we will do 9-month leases, or we'll do 14-month leases to stagger those expiration dates.
Okay, that now makes more sense to me. I still assume that the initial lease up will be a little bit pandemonium, as it always is, but a lot of people are going to want to move in, and you're going to want tenants. So I assume that at least that first lease up will strain the loading zone area. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a fair statement. You know, we're used to having student housing downtown where we'll turn over 150 units in 2 days. With not a big parking garage or parking ramp. And you learn how to manage it and make appointments for every move-in, make appointments for every checkout, have traffic control. And it's just the nature of it when you're in an urban, high-density area. So it's something that we're used to, and it doesn't create an issue for us from a management perspective because we're going into it with our eyes wide open.
Okay, and these will be unfurnished, unlike most high-end student apartment buildings these days, correct?
Correct. They are unfurnished, but they're smaller one-bedrooms, and so the amount of furniture, the amount of move-in or move-out merchandise will be greatly reduced over what your typical apartment sees.
Okay. So just a question or two about the loading zones and how that's going to be managed. And you've answered a few questions already. I'll just say I'm struggling with how you're going to manage that. I agree the cameras can inform somebody perhaps on the 16th floor of what's going on. I'm slightly hesitant that you're going to be surveilling people on the cycle track. In my mind, it needs to be a person, and it needs to be a person, maybe not 24/7, but if the manager's only occupying the space during the day, in the evening when everybody's getting food deliveries, it's just and all sorts of other things, it just seems like it'll be tough to manage. Can you convince me that it will be okay?
Yeah, so first of all, you know, on any intense move out or move in schedule, you know, those happen by appointment, and it'll also happen by a parking pass. So you cannot have your vehicle there without a pass in your vehicle. From a general management for food deliveries and other services, it's in our best interest to make sure this building works with downtown. And so it is in our best interest that we don't have a food service driver pulling into that bike parking or that bike lane, or leaving their car for any more period of time than they have to drop that package off in a secure package area. That means our manager needs to do an evening shift or is on duty during that evening shift, then that's what it'll be. We'll do what we have to do to be a respectful and good property owner in downtown Madison.
So your plan is to have an evening property manager on site also?
If we need a property manager there in the evening, the property manager will be there in the evening. It's, you know, where is the demand for their services, and to make it a good building for the neighborhood and for the residents that live there.
Okay, you know, in large student housing projects, Plan Commission has often required a management plan that details some of those commitments. I'm not sure, I don't think we've ever asked for that sort of a commitment from a project that's not oriented towards students, but I'll think about that. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Heck. Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you, Chair. This is kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Heck's questions about the moving and move out. But I heard you say, Mr. Alexander, that you feel that the future tenants will have some flexibility on that move in, move out schedule. But I'm just curious, given the overall tendency of the Madison area to lease on August to August or September to September year terms, excuse me, will you hold to leasing only in those staggered increments to maintain that staggered April to September move in, move out schedule?
Yeah, and it's not, I should say that it's not just that schedule. That is the majority of the turnover time, just because of the season. And we will maintain that because it's healthier for us to do that. It's easier on the residents, and it just creates more predictability. So we're doing it now, and it's working. And it's working on a layover, if you will, on the number of days between when that apartment comes empty and when a new person can move into it. To manage that as well. So it's and the other thing I would say about this is that, which helps, is it's naturally reoccurring affordable. And what I mean by that is anything else that's being built downtown in a 1-bedroom unit is at least 30% more than what we believe we can market this for. So when that happens, that's a big advantage for the people that are going to be living here. Just like it would be on your home if you had a 3% mortgage versus going out and moving and having to get a 6% mortgage. You're going to probably stay where you're at. Or you're going to be flexible in what your demands are for a move-in and move-out date. So we think we can easily manage this during that period of time. And yes, we will have some leases turn over in November and December and January and February, but just because of the level of rents, we're not going to have the typical exodus out of this building like you'll see on buildings that are purely students or buildings that are downtown or right at the top of the rental market. In competing for the very top prices from tenants.
Okay, and compared to your other properties, would you say that most of your other leases are August to August? Like, what's the sort of the rough breakdown in the lease terms? Do you have majority August to August, or do you have some of that variation throughout the year?
For non-student housing, we definitely have variation, and I can tell you which helps with this is that anything downtown that's a 1-bedroom that's significantly below what the new rents are for the brand new buildings that have been getting approved, those residents aren't movable. And it's an affordability issue for them. They need to live downtown or they want to live downtown. And they'll put up with inconveniences if they had to, or a lease date that isn't exactly what they want for a move-in. So our experience tells us that it's going to be okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back to some of my earlier questions about that loading area on the first floor. I know you mentioned that you need your bike parking area. I'm not entirely sure the bike parking all has to be on the first floor as we see it on other floors and other projects. And I know you're trying to fit a lot of things and mechanicals on that floor. Have you considered at all moving some things around to be able to expand that to where, say, is currently the sprinkler room, parcel room, to be able to extend that loading zone a little bit more? I just think that without having an interior move-in, move-out area in a parking garage, that additional space would be very helpful for circulation.
When we did do that analysis, two things occur. If we move the significant amount of bike parking that's required off the ground floor, it's going to reduce the number of units. And that has a direct correlation with the cost per unit and thus the rent per unit. There's another logistical issue with doing that is we start eating into the pedestrian-only corridor that's alongside the east side of the building to even get access under the structure for a couple more loading zone areas. So we don't believe the gain would be worth it to have a couple more spaces, given that we already have 4+ for the building off street, and that we're not creating traffic by cars coming and going, parking in the structure like the typical downtown building.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I do, of course, understand the financial impacts of units. I'm curious if, say, you lost a unit to move a fitness room elsewhere and an on-site management office could be on that first floor facing the street, and potentially expanding that loading zone a bit more into the sprinkler room, mail room. I'm not trying to design your first floor. I know you guys have looked at this, but I'm curious if you lost a unit or two to accommodate some of those spaces elsewhere, if that would be a deal breaker.
The mechanical functions that are utilizing the ground floor can't be moved upstairs.
Yes, I understand that.
For some of those. We also want to activate the street up front by having a small lounge and exercise area. So that doesn't function very well. It doesn't function at all to try to have, a service stall in that area. So we've been very, very tidy off that courtyard on not taking any more space than we absolutely need for those mechanical functions in that area. So we just, we have a very, very small footprint, and we're trying to juxtapose, this building services, and I just don't know that we would gain anything without it adversely affecting, the affordability of the units, just for a couple more stalls.
I'm not suggesting a loading zone where the fitness room is. I'm asking about moving a management office there to have more physical presence on the street to manage that situation.
The management office could be, there could be a station down on that floor, but if the manager is really doing their job, they're not going to be sitting at their desk not paying attention to what's going on in the building. They're going to be moving throughout that building, and they're going to be watching what's going on. No matter where that office is. So we're not adverse to putting it there, but that in itself doesn't ensure that the manager is going to see what's going on the side of the building, where it's not visible from that front management office.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Alder Solheim, this is Doug. We're, as it's noted in the report, we're still working out finding all of the required bike parking. And the area under the building where we've got 8 stalls is eating up a lot of real estate to provide those. So it's possible that as we sort through our bike parking issues, we might be able to find, free up some of that space. But I did feel good about having some of the visitor bike parking be covered there. So it's something that we could still be flexible about maybe in that area, but we're already constrained on the numbers. So
yeah, thank you, Doug. That's exactly where I was looking, where that is, or to the Wilson Street side and the sprinkler room, obviously knowing that you needing that. But if you can shift it one way, either the other, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, it might work. It could work.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I have a related question. This is probably for Doug. The door that faces John Nolan on the lower level, does that lead directly to the bike parking area, or is that a level lower because of the slope?
That there's a couple of feet of drop across the site. And so that door involves stairs when you go from the bike parking level to the outside.
Okay, because I'm also looking for more space and was thinking, can you have a level of bike parking that's down below the current level that you have to free up some of that space? Then there's the matter of getting bikes out of some sort of lower level, and I realize that would increase expenses, but what do you think about that idea?
If it's Randy's money, no problem. It's intriguing.
That could free up a lot of space for a management office, maybe another loading zone space. I don't know. Thanks. I was just searching.
Yeah.
Other questions for registrants? So I think we will close the public hearing at this point, and we'll ask the commission for questions for staff. I would share that we have traffic engineer Sean Malloy with us as well, in case there were traffic engineering questions. So as well as Colin and Megan. Alder Glenn.
I'll get mine out the way so all the traffic ones can be asked. Colin or someone, I see the two elevators in there. It's pretty high up, lots of apartments, pretty dense. Is that normal to have the two elevators?
So I will preface this by saying this is probably a building permitting question. But I did look at the other buildings that I had included as examples along Wilson Street, and how many elevators they all had. All of them except for 149 East Wilson, which is the smallest building, had 3 elevators each. 149 East Wilson had 2 elevators. I would say that this building may be a little bit underserved with the number of elevators, but probably not so much that it becomes a code issue. And then I would also note that if this proposal was approved by the Plan Commission and it went to building permits and it was determined that they did indeed need 3 elevators, they would have to make that change or go through the regular appeals process for that. But that would not come back to the Plan Commission. That would, they would deal with that with building inspection.
I appreciate your hypothetical best knowledge answer. Thank you.
Thanks. Alder Yeager.
Thank you. This is a question for traffic engineering. Hi, Sean. It seems to me on this whole issue of access and turnover and so forth that part of this is trying to quantify the maximum load, the number of people trying to enter and exit that narrow space, and using that process that we saw described for going into a space, backing out, turning around and going out and so forth. So, and I understand from discussing this earlier today with planning that we don't actually have traffic engineering standards for how we could convert an occupancy into likely number of package or food deliveries or rideshare calls or so forth. But just based on your expertise, I threw down some numbers, but I don't have the expertise to know if I'm in the area of reality or this is reasonable or not. But looking at this, it seems to me that the easiest one to figure out, and perhaps actually the least problem, is the move in, move out. I actually think it may be credible that the concept of that they took us through of a rate of 16 per week or 16 per month, which would be 4 per week on turnover. So let's say 8 calls, one going out, one coming in. I mean, that works in those weeks at about 1 or 2 per day, assuming they use Monday through Saturday, which may be manageable. What seems to me to be, how do you look at, or how could you possibly quantify what the demand is for this kind of occupancy for, let's say, the category of package deliveries, food deliveries, ride share calls, and so forth. So I just arbitrarily say, well, maybe try to be conservative, but maybe active day for this kind of thing, let's say 10%, 30 units in a day, use one of those services and generate a demand of 30. That might be more, but I'll look for, I see I'm being urged to up that, and I suppose there could be days, but bear with me. And then maybe, if we look at miscellaneous ones, like the garbage pickup and friends picking up or dropping off, those kinds of things, all the miscellaneous ones, I'd say that's 5. That would be 37 in a would seem to me a busy day, but maybe low. That would work out in a 12-hour day where most of the activity was to 3 per hour. That would seem to me to be fairly at high risk for overcrowding in that space. The ability that we'd see things parked in the crucial right of way and so forth. Could you comment on that? Is that likely to, in your experience, to represent a fairly high risk of an issue there, or am I being too conservative or too optimistic about what the actual demand in that area could be?
Yeah, I think the numbers that you were that you're laying out, I think that seems like a reasonable amount, and unfortunately, we don't have really good statistics on, food pickup and Ubers, that we know of. So it is a little difficult to tell. But I think traffic's biggest concern is people actually using the lot in that area. They are providing it, but from what we've seen from the other developments nearby up and down Wilson Street is that the Amazon trucks, Grubhub, and all those things, they're just kind of parking, in the lane and blocking it. So, if there was a way to, make the entrance more visible, more attractive for people to use, that would be, one thing that we'd be interested in. But, as far as the constant in and out, if people are able to turn around, the backing is our real concern, the visibility backing when there's bicyclists, going downhill, they can pick up some speed. So, I think with the lot, as long as vehicles can turn around, I think that those numbers are manageable. We especially like to see the garbage pickup plan. I don't believe we saw that with this submittal. So that's something we'd definitely be keeping a close eye and see, what's possible with that. But I think, the biggest thing is, all those vehicles being able to turn around on site and go in and out of the driveway in a forward manner is, I think eases a lot of the concerns for us.
Thanks, Sean.
Commissioner Bazin.
Thank you. I had a broad question, likely for Megan or Colin. I'm just curious. I feel like we frequently see the term affordable housing used, sometimes in public comment, sometimes in development reports. And I'm curious if someone could help me understand, like, who defines that and how is it defined?
Yeah, I can take a shot at that. When you hear city staff talk about affordable housing, we are typically using a definition that a household making no more than 60% of the area median income would have to spend more than 30% of their income on that housing. That's the definition that we use when the city makes funding awards with the Affordable Housing Fund, with TIF, and the other programs that we use. And as we track the development of affordable housing, that's the definition we use as well. You could kind of think of that as capital A, affordable, capital H housing. But then there is a lot of other lowercase affordable housing, things that I believe Randy Alexander mentioned, naturally occurring affordable housing, units that are don't have as many amenities, potentially smaller, older, that tend to be less expensive because there are other types of units that have more amenities, newer, larger, that demand a higher rent. I think in this case, and several other cases of recent development that have come through, unit sizes are kept small for the purpose of making those units less expensive. I think there are certain things that can be done with finishes and amenities that also make units more affordable. But when in a case like this, there is no there's no specific price point that they're going to drop below that makes them, what we would term affordable housing. They may be more affordable than other newly developed housing, but would not meet the 60% AMI threshold that we would use to call affordable housing.
And I would just add that in general, there is a kind of widely adopted understanding that housing is considered affordable to the household that's living in it if they are paying no more than 30% of their income. And so, as Colin noted, when we're talking about, kind of formally assisted, publicly assisted affordable housing, often we're looking at what could be affordable to a household earning 60% of the area median income or less, sometimes less than that. But that definition of affordability can broadly apply based on a household's income. So there can be lots of different numbers for what is affordable to a household based on what they make. And then I'll just note, just because I feel like it's really important to remind us that related to Alder Figueroa Cole's question of the applicants, when there are no funding or incentives being used on the part of the city related to the affordability of a project, making decisions about affordability of a project is outside of the purview of what we can do, what we can regulate as a city.
Alderfield. Well, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about the placement of the property management office piece. That's an interesting detail about this project that I'm glad fellow commissioners raised because I'm interested in it. It does seem awkward, given that it seems kind of awkward that they may be placed on the top floor, and that's presumably where the camera feed would be, but then they'd need to use elevators to get downstairs to respond to something. I'm wondering if we have a way of regulating placement of property management or their ability to respond to something near the entrance, like if that can be the basis for a decision here, or if we can, by condition, ask that they move that closer to the entrance or some other strategy, or if that's really also outside the scope of a plan commission's land use decision at this point.
I will start by noting that one of the recommended conditions of approval is a standardized management plan that we often request from larger developments such as this, that Director Tuttle and the zoning administrator are able to review and approve. I think if I'm looking at Megan to corroborate this, but if the commission did want to suggest a condition that may moved the management office from the top floor to somewhere like the bottom floor near the front of the building, I think that would have to be tied to one of the standards of approval. There needs to be a reason behind that condition. So if the commission is able to tie that to one of the standards to make sure that there is a rational nexus between that condition and the reasons for approving it, then the commission could do that.
And I think in this case, I would also recommend that be tied to the management plan itself as a standard tool that we use to evaluate the type of operational impacts that we're looking at with that management plan, particularly thinking about whether there is something you want to encourage the development to consider as part of that management plan.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Bazine, I think I did not ask you if all your questions were answered, and so I just want to double check.
Yes, all my questions were answered. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Solheim.
Sorry, one more. I believe that Sean Malloy mentioned the garbage pickup, and that was a slide that wasn't, I didn't see it on Legistar, but it was in the presentation. I was wondering if that could be brought up, and if Sean could opine on if this is typical of what we see. I see a lot of garbage pickup where it's rolled out near the front of the building, so the truck is just pulling into the site. This seemed to be a longer backup per se after the trash is picked up. So I was just curious if you had any thoughts on how that compares to what you see in other developments.
Well, this is my first time looking at it, so
so I put you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, I think we would want some information on how the garbage truck, I'm assuming it's backing in, and then they're rolling it out. That is pretty typical for a lot of buildings, in this area. Unfortunately, some of the other buildings on Wilson kind of have the similar setup where they drive in, they pick up the trash, and then they have to back out. So we certainly prefer backing in first because you can kind of see your surroundings rather than backing up when you don't know what's back there. altogether. So this, this isn't unusual, I guess I'd say. They could possibly have an option. I know there's a little bit of a buffer area between the the cycle track. I guess maybe there's a way to roll it out. I don't know. There's maybe not that much space there. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, this is what they're showing here isn't unusual for a trash pickup plan.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Alder Uguer.
Thank you, Chair. One more question for Sean Malloy. I am looking at suggested condition number 37, which involves you. And currently it says they shall work with traffic engineering to detail general curb management plans for daily site access by residents of all transportation modes, as well as by trash collection, delivery, and rideshare services and other services to the site. Okay, I'm going to ask a difficult question. Is that strong enough text for you to give us satisfaction that that we'll be able to adequately handle all of the safety issues that we've discussed with regard to the site access problems? If you had a chance now, would you change that text at all? Or is that adequate for you to get the job done?
Yeah, I think it's adequate. Also note that the curb management plan, and Colin can correct me. There are several agencies that are actually going to be reviewing that. I believe zoning and parking utility, if that's correct.
So Sean, we did hear an update about the forthcoming curb management plan more broadly at the Plan Commission's special meeting a couple of weeks ago. And I guess I would just be curious if this is referring to just a more specific project level, more immediate curb management need rather than that broader effort.
Yeah, I think we were just referring to that group, of city agencies each, reviewing and having a sign off on the general curb management plan. I suppose I could have worded that clear and included the other agencies in that comment, but I believe Colin has that covered in his condition as well.
So you're referring to the sign-off process here, Sean?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is a more immediate site-specific curb management than Alder Uguer, if that's helpful.
Okay. Obviously, I was just thinking that in trying to take advantage of a project here that is moving in the direction of non-traffic or non-automobile-oriented approach, that if there's a way to find this out, but also deal with some of the unintended consequences or safety issues here because of this limited access, that if there were a different or additional or a modified condition here, that this would be a good time to consider it. That's the reasoning behind my question about this. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Uguer. Commissioner Heck?
Thank you. This is a question I could have asked the applicant, and I'm thinking Colin might know the answer to it. How are bicycles going to go in and out of this floor? Do you know, are they going through the front door? 300 bikes a day?
I believe there is access through the side door, but then some may go through the front. I know there's a side door that goes to the path
Oh.
that sneaks around to the back side of the building.
Okay, I see
directly.
indoor bike parking access. I see a door. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that more or less answers my question. I was concerned about, well, I guess I'm still concerned about 300, but potentially 300 bicycles competing with garbage trucks and everybody else. But that answers my question. Thank you.
I wonder if anybody's ready to think about a motion at this point. Commissioner Heck.
Unfortunately, it's another question.
That's all right too.
Colin, you know, you've heard a lot of questions about related to, I guess, the management plan, I'll call it, and details that could be included in that. We can be a little more prescriptive, perhaps, but there's a great deal of concern about this for me. And is it appropriate to refer an item subject to submittal of the management plan? Would that be problematic? And then it would give us an opportunity to make sure that some of our concerns are addressed?
I would say it's probably unusual in that I don't know if we have done it before. Typically, the management plan is approved by the zoning administrator and the director of planning. There's a standard form that the management plans typically take, covering staffing, security and access to the building, move in, move out, trash and delivery. If there are specific management issues, which the Planning Commission has already discussed, that the Commission would like to see in the management plan, I think there are two options: either referring the item out to a future plan with instructions for the applicant to submit that management plan for the Plan Commission's review, again tying that condition to the appropriate standards of approval, or adding more detail to that condition and relying on the staff review of Megan and Zoning Administrator Katie Bannon. And then again, as there have been discussions about the traffic engineering impact, curb management, I think there is also the ability to include the city traffic engineer as reviewing staff, potentially the parking utility director as well.
Okay.
I think I would add just if there are certain outcomes that the Commission is looking for in terms of how to ensure the standards are met, that could be documented through the management plan, that those could be things that you could articulate as part of the conditions and as part of your approval. That way, as the planning director and as the zoning administrator that will ultimately look at those management plans, that we can confirm that those conditions could be satisfied with the management plans that are provided.
Yeah, Commissioner Heck, I was just wondering as you were talking whether, tied to standard 3, there might be some conditions related to sort of immediacy of available staff to deal with congestion or with other problems. And, you could articulate, we could get some help with some language there, but to me, that might be sort of the logical daisy chain to get to what you're talking about.
Yeah, frankly, I'm a little bit scrambled right now. So I mean, that could be accomplished either through a referral, which Colin addressed, I think, or conditions of approval related to the management plan. So it could be one or the other, sort of.
I think putting articulating some conditions at this stage would be the route that I may recommend the commission to consider. Helping us understand what are those outcomes that you're hoping to see as part of that management plan is what I would recommend.
All right. Thank you, I think.
Commissioner Solheim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I do recall a lot of developments where we did see a management plan as part of the submittal in Legistar, particularly for some of the early student housing developments. I think as we've had more, it's kind of like, okay, here's another core spaces management plan. We know what to expect and have ironed it out. But I do think this is, to Commissioner Heck's point, a little bit of a different scenario where some of the items that impact the standards could be articulated well in a management plan that would be nice to see. I personally also think that a couple adjustments to the first floor would make me feel a lot better about meeting standard 3 and 5. So I thought, perhaps some clear direction where those could be combined may be helpful in getting me comfortable with this, because there are a lot of other things I really like about this development. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Alderfield.
Thank you. I want to echo a similar sentiment that I do think with clearly articulating a management plan that responds to, or that ensures that property management will respond to issues in the loading zone, other kinds of move in, move out management of traffic, that 3 and 5 can be met. I can find them met with a condition that satisfies those through the management plan, and through having management be able to respond quickly to a situation like that by being located on the same floor as the ground entrance. Because as I alluded to in a recent comment, I don't think it's feasible to have them take a big elevator ride each time they need to go downstairs and deal with something. At this point, in terms of coming up with language, is that something that staff, you all could help us with, or that we could go into a recess and contemplate when coming up with a motion?
I think maybe just for clarity, I heard Commissioner Heck asking about options for paths forward, whether it's a referral and request for the management plan to be part of that discussion, or adding conditions. And I think hearing your comments and Commissioner Solheim's comments, I think maybe you were leaning towards the referral. So I think we could help make a motion if that's where the commission is leaning. If you are looking for some help making a more specific language for a standard for a condition, to meet the standards, it might be helpful to take a second to do that for you.
And one final question. Do we have time under the clock in state statute to refer this if we wanted to do that?
I don't believe there are any statutory obligations for this, right?
For a CP. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Alder Uguer.
Thank you. I just wanted to add my agreement to the comments have just been made. I think it is possible to draft conditions that would get us to the proper language through the conditions that would give us comfort that upon all approvals that we'll have satisfaction of 3 and 5, and it comes down to whether a recess tonight would give us time to put that together, or whether we need a referral to be able to properly put that language together. I'm okay either way, but I'm also certainly leaning in favor of using conditions to be able to move this thing forward.
Alder Verveer, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. I've been waiting for the appropriate time for me to weigh in and share some thoughts with the commission here. It seems like now we're through with the staff questions, so I think now would be the appropriate time. Let me begin by thanking the commission so much, Chair, for the very thoughtful questions and discussion. Like many of you have articulated tonight, I too am struggling with this, and I've been struggling with this for about 3 years now, actually. I have come to the conclusion that there are no perfect solutions to the significant impacts of this application. This is an application that some of you do remember was technically before you in August of 2024 with a recommendation to deny by the Urban Design Commission. And with that, we were able to convince the applicant that referral was in order. And so this really is the first time that this commission has actually discussed this very unique and interesting proposal. And it is unique and interesting because, as many of you know, I've been at this for a long time with the honor of representing a fair amount of the downtown area on the city council. And I can't think of a analogous proposal that, you know, is anything close to the order of 16 stories and 324 bedrooms with 0 parking stalls for motor vehicles. With that said, I have never opposed density. I've always welcomed density. And I think that there's a lot to like about the unique idea here that the applicant has been pursuing for years now of a high density building with 0 motor vehicle parking stalls. It's one that I will admit every constituent that's contacted me about this proposal is very leery of, and perhaps to be imagined, everyone that has contacted me does have concerns about the proposal. I want to also appreciate the very excellent work of my friends and neighbors in the Neighborhood Association in Capital Neighborhoods for their continuing dialogue with the applicant for, like I say, about 3 years now. We've had numerous neighborhood meetings over the years, and it is nothing new for any of us, the concerns around conditional use standards 3 and 5. And I will say that those concerns were out there from the beginning, well before the city installed the Wilson Street cycle track. I would say since the cycle track is now operational, there is substantial evidence, particularly since the opening of the Adria at 179 West Wilson Street, that we have had some significant issues with blockage of the cycle track and safety concerns of the cycle track. It's been a struggle for our transportation departments, parking enforcement officers to do a consistently good job trying to keep the delivery vehicles and moving vehicles out of the cycle track. And so you can appreciate our concern in the neighborhood that this will just be compound matters significantly worse. Not to mention, of course, the fact that T-Wall has approval to build adjacent to this site with what most in the community would call the former Pisons building at 131 West Wilson Street. So the 100 block of West Wilson Street is a challenge today for given the high concentration of pedestrians, bicyclists, and other vehicular traffic there currently. And it certainly will only be exacerbated with all of the new development on the block. With that said, I do think that, like the Planning Division staff report concludes, that there is a way to get to meeting the conditional use standards 3 and 5, but we aren't there yet in my estimation. So I'll just be transparent and say that this is not a new conversation for Alder and Commissioner Field. He and I talked about this yesterday, and how I was asking for assistance in trying to come up with a more robust and specific conditions beyond what you have in the staff report with Planning Division proposed condition number 2 and Traffic Engineering Division proposed conditions 37 and 38. I really appreciate the excellent questions, as I said already, that many of you have asked and that have been answered, and the ideas that have been articulated by many commissioners. These have also been articulated in our many neighborhood meetings, and unfortunately, many of these ideas haven't come to fruition. I will say that the application has improved from where it was originally. I appreciate the design progression. That's how the applicant was able to secure Urban Design Commission recommendation of approval after initially being rejected in the prior year. But there's still just huge issues that I'm struggling with, like others of you have said, like Commissioner Heck, related to the way I'm weary that the public right-of-ways impact will be significant. And there are great ideas out there that, again, have already been mentioned, like potential reconfiguration of the first floor of the building, moving the management office, requiring a resident manager that is available in the evening hours as well. We do not have anything, specifically in writing yet at this point relating to waste removal, to move in, move out. The applicant, Randy Alexander, and we had a conversation yesterday about this, he and I, but did share with me the move in, move out plan generally earlier today that was shared with you all this evening. But it really would provide, I think, me and my constituents a much higher level of comfort if that was all formalized. If the relationship that's proposed with Dane County for leasing spaces in their parking garage was formalized in writing. So one of the ideas that I had, and that again, Alderfield has heard me say this in a conversation we had yesterday, is my frustration that, I like, for example, a former alder and now Commissioner Heck has familiarity with as a former downtown campus area alder. We impose these management plans, but then as an alder, unless they've been submitted with the application, like Commissioner Solheim's referenced in the past by some of our larger out-of-state student housing developers, we at least as an alder never get to see them. But moreover, the community doesn't get to see them. One of the things I remember we talked about yesterday, that is myself and Alderfield, was the frustration that those aren't publicly available. They aren't in Legistar generally if they're done after the fact. We have disposition letters that I constantly, over the years, am referring to that planning staff fortunately uploads in Legistar that are available to the public to see the conditions of approval that were imposed by this body. But when it comes to the management plan, you won't see this again unless you do move referral tonight and ask to see it, or if there's some other way, a middle ground where we can not only acknowledge that the Plan Commission has continuing jurisdiction, which you obviously do, but that the community is involved in the formulation of that management plan in a more immediate way. And I know it's unorthodox, but at a minimum, maybe treating it as a major alteration where it does come back to a public body. Making it a minor alteration type process would include me as the alder of the district, but it still wouldn't formally include the community and the public in a way to formulate this very importantly needed, more robust and specific site access plan and curb management plan. So anyway, I'll close there. I appreciate you all hearing me out, and again, don't envy the position that you're in, trying dealing with this challenging balancing act of finding that conditional use standards 3 and 5 are met. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Revere. Commissioner Solheim.
I'm going to take a shot at this. open to suggestions along the way. But I'm going to move referral to our next meeting or any meeting thereafter at the choice of the applicant to allow the applicant time to prepare and submit a management plan for the development, which will fully describe and articulate things that impact standards 3 and 5, particularly vehicular, pedestrian, access, deliveries, garbage truck, move-in, move-outs, all of those questions. I would also ask that the applicant consider minor revisions to the first floor to accommodate an on-site management office on the first floor, as well as expansion of the loading areas to assist in meeting standards 3 and 5. Present that at the next meeting.
Alderfield seconds the motion. Any further commentary on the motion? Nicole, I think you did a great job for at least where I sit. So,
thank you. I just want to add again, there are a lot of cool things about this proposal, and I appreciate all of the conversation, and I think that with some modifications, I can get a lot more comfortable in meeting those standards.
Yep, thanks. Alderfield did. I'm going to, Colin, go ahead.
Clarification question really quick on the motion. Commissioner Solheim said to the next meeting, or as the applicant requested. I think it would just be cleaner to identify one, and if we or if the commission refers it to the next meeting, the applicant could potentially request an additional referral. So I just wanted to clarify that is the intent of the motion.
Next meeting, and they can push it off if they need more time.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll see it on November 17th. Yeah, 17th. Alderfield comments?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to echo some of that sentiment once again and say too that I think some of the site access concerns will be maybe not entirely solved, but significantly improved by having a person located really close to the front door who can actively monitor and view the loading zone. For me, that is my primary concern about this site. I will just go on record now by saying that I think it's actually an improvement to site access that there is no parking for residents here, because I would be a lot more concerned about vehicles coming on and off, vehicles owned by many residents coming in and out of a parking garage in a limited amount of space. So I think where I'm focusing my interest is on tightening up that loading zone area here. And so I appreciate any effort that the applicant can put into making a management plan specific so that we can find or improve how this proposal relates to condition 3. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Commissioner Heck?
Thank you. I agree with what Commissioner Solheim, Alderfield, and others have said. I'm really thankful that this motion is being made, and I will support it. But I'm going to briefly just be a scold and say that I won't hesitate to vote against this proposal if these items are not satisfied. The other standards of approval, no trouble. I think that this is a great project in many, many ways, and I want it to succeed, but I hope we can get there. Thanks.
Thanks. Alder Uguer?
I'm going to support this as well. While this discussion is carried on, I've madly scribbled trying to put together language that we could just add to the current item 2 and the current conditions to strengthen it, and couldn't satisfy myself that it really was possible to do without more details in the management plan, and specifically some amendments to and edits to the current design to make it all possible. So I'm going to support this. I also think this is a worthy project, and it's just got these issues, and I'm hoping we can solve them. Thank you.
Thanks. Alderfield Roll Call?
Thank you. I don't get a vote anymore. Just kidding. But this project. I jumped in late and just listening to the testimony brought me back to the first time I heard about this project. So it has been pretty alive in my head since I heard about it back in that UDC meeting. So I do appreciate that we are centering the discussion on the loading zone because that's where we left it off at the time, which there are many other concerns that people have, many input that we receive in public testimony, and I just hope that when you guys meet again next time, that we just focus on what we're asking this applicant to do, which is to deal with the zoning area, period. Because I think when Patrick was speaking, I don't know, my internet went out, so I don't know exactly what you said, but I hope it was like, yes, this is a good project that has a zoning loading issue that needs to be resolved, and not reopen the discussion to go and discuss like parking situation, for example, in an area that parking is not required. So I think you guys will manage to do that well, but I still feel like I had to say it, that next time that we meet on this is to discuss the ask specifically to the zoning thing, unless something majorly whatever happens. But I do also agree with everyone else that has spoken. This is a good project that needs a little bit of adjustment on the zoning area. So thank you for making the motion.
Thanks. Alder Glenn.
Yeah, I was bouncing around and couldn't figure out until Nicole and Patrick got talking, and I'm like, what is it that just felt off? And I know I was asking about parking, and I know not about parking, but about the congestion and about the move-in. And I agree. I mean, the price point, this building, being in the space it can be at, all of those things are wonderful about the project. And I agree with the management part and those questions and listening in, and great discussion, because that's what I was feeling is like the moving around and elevator coming down and management if something does happen in ground floor. And if we're able to do that, I also think that we are in a place in the room, and agree with Patrick that if this can be done, then I would totally agree with it, that managing it at an access point to prevention and preventative will get my vote. So thanks, Nicole and Patrick, for the great questions and discussion, and thanks, Nicole, for setting it all up into a motion. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alderfield.
Thank you. A final thought. I wonder if the mover of the motion is amenable to including a mention of rideshare in what we would like the management plan to consider when it comes back to us, vehicles using the loading zone for the purpose of rideshare. So that's a piece that I don't think we've talked about yet.
Oh, include addressing that in the management plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be part of it. I would not want to make a requirement that they have anything solidified about, the parking garage and the shared car thing, because I don't think that can be finalized right now. And I don't think it's required without parking. But yes, I do think the management plan should address shared ride, Uber, et cetera, and how that interacts in the loading zone.
Thank you.
Colin, is that able to be included in the comments or the minutes?
Yeah. Yes, I believe I have it.
All right. If there's no further discussion, I think we'll call the vote. Is there objection to unanimous approval for the motion to refer? Seeing none, that motion is passed. And we have one other scheduled item, and that is on our agenda tonight. That's item 6, which is Legistar 90014, relating to 511 through 515 West Dayton Street in Alder District 4. This is consideration of a conditional use in the Downtown Residential 2 DR2 district for a residential building complex containing 2 new 2-family dwellings in the rear yard of 2 existing 3-family dwellings with shared pedestrian access. So we will start with the staff presentation. I think we still have Colin.
Yes, thank you again. With this request for a residential building complex, the project site includes 2 properties. There's a 2-story, 3-unit building on 511 West Dayton Street and a 2-story, 3-unit building on 515 West Dayton Street. A new 2-story, 2-unit building is being proposed to be built behind each building. The rear buildings are accessed by a shared walkway between the existing buildings, and then the entire site would be considered a residential building complex. The Urban Design Commission provided an advisory recommendation for this proposal, recommending approval with 4 conditions. That the project return to UDC for final approval, that the building design be revised to show a consistent cladding on each elevation, adding windows on the side and front elevations to break up the blank wall expanses and revise the landscape plan to increase plant groupings, and add more upright plantings to create a layered effect and multi-seasonal structure. As the approving body, the Plan Commission has the ability to accept or amend the conditions of the UDC's advisory recommendation should it find that those recommendations are necessary to meet conditional use standard of approval 8. From a design standpoint, the UDC recommended simplifying the exterior materials. This would include removing the material transition on the side elevations and the 2 additional windows be added in those blank wall spaces, one on the side elevation and one on the front elevation. Staff understands that the proposed side elevations that the UDC reviewed were prepared in response to feedback from neighborhood meetings prior to the UDC meeting. From a process standpoint, the UDC has requested that the Plan Commission require the project return to the UDC for final approval. Or final review to meet the UDC's proposed conditions. For the review, the UDC's purview would be limited to evaluating only those design-related issues that I had just listed. After the applicant speaks and the public hearing is done, I'm happy to answer any of the questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. So we do have registrants for the item. I will open the public hearing and we'll, Megan, I don't know if the applicant team has pooled time. So if you could manage us through that as well, and we'll try to give you a warning when your time's almost up.
We have one registrant wishing to speak from the applicant team. This is Paul Cuda, representing Jeff Rude, Mad Ads. And we'll note some additional members of the applicant team after he speaks.
All right, thanks.
Hi, my name's Paul. Thank you very much. Under the interest of your time and everybody's time here, I'm in understanding that this was originally proposed as a consent agenda item. I would like to just speak to the UDC 4 conditions, if that's acceptable with the commission, and then answer any other questions on the project, or would you prefer an overview?
I think that's fine, Paul. Thank you for, thanks for the offer.
Okay, so specifically with the UDC provisions, item 3, 4, and 6 are fine with us. Actually, I have a clarification from staff on item 6. Just so that our team is not going down a road that they shouldn't be. But on item 5, could we jump to like the 8th slide? Sorry. 2, 3, right there. Let's try there. So that shows the existing houses are hatched and the new proposed houses are on the side. You kind of see each of them. If you see the textured area under the up on west side elevation number 1, the T111, that's actually, you'll see another elevation where we're just running the clapboard siding all the way around. That's the end of the stair. And the window that you see down low is at the intermediate landing going to the basement. Could you go to the next slide, please? You kind of start to see it a little bit. If you look at the middle on the right, you see that stair. And then underneath the covered walk, at the far end of the covered walk, is actually the entrance into the unit and a front porch. And then the rest of that is covered bike parking, and the stairs run up along that in that space. So the front windows that you're seeing there are at the top of the landing and at the upper landing. So those are the two higher windows. And then the side window is the intermediate landing going downstairs. And then there's light at the front door going into the unit. So next slide, please. So what we've done is, if you look at the lower elevations, I actually drew in where the stair stringer, one of the comments was they'd like to see elevation or windows where there are blank walls or expanses of walls. Just as a reference of scale, these are very small buildings. The footprint is just a hair over 1,000 square feet. So if you go back one, if you look at the right, the front elevation, I drew in where the stringer and the railing is. So that from that door to the corner is 13 feet. So it's not really a large expansive wall relative to residential construction. But then you can also see, we can't just put a mirrored window that's happening above the roof line. There was some discussion about putting a window down low. We think that's a bad idea and wouldn't recommend it. That's bike parking, required bike parking, covered bike parking, and having a window, first of all, looking out at
Paul,
the
if you could wrap up, I think
bikes.
there will be time for questions from the commission if there are other
And
things.
then similar on the side as well. It's the 13 feet is from window to corner. It's not dissimilar with 13 to 16 feet of blank wall space on the existing buildings, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you. And then I do have a question on item 6 for staff.
Okay.
If possible.
Our Chair, I would imagine you might want to deal with that when we get to discussion. Okay.
We'll do that at the QA. Yep.
Okay, we'll come back to that question, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is AJ Donka of District 4, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
That person is no longer in attendance.
Okay, great. So I'll just note that AJ originally registered in opposition, not wishing to speak, and during the meeting changed their registration. So I'm not sure why they're not here, but so then I'll just also note that Zach Dressler, representing Veerbecker, I believe the applicant team is also here registered in support and available to answer questions. And that's all we have for this item, Chair.
All right, thanks. Are there questions from the commissioners for our registrants? I'll do you, Gare. Thanks.
Yes, for the developer. Should I interpret your comments to say that you would prefer that this commission exclude one or more of the UDC recommendations from the conditions, specifically the requirement for that window, which would be in the covered bike space? Do we still have the developer?
Yeah,
that question is for Paul.
Or for Paul, sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe Paul or Zach.
Yep, it's Paul.
Paul, did you catch my question?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. It was the unmute button came up kind of late. So our request is that you would consider removing that condition in particular, or at the very least on the front. We don't necessarily understand why we need another window at the upper landing on the west side, and in the 515 building in particular, that faces south and west. So all it does is in a small space a stair creates more heat gain. That's why we actually have the window on the north side. There's 4 windows in that stair. So our preference would be that the windows remain as they are, but the other conditions we're fine with. And again, with just one question about item 6.
And we'll get to that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. That clarifies what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Great. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Quick question for Paul, just on order of operations here in the exterior materials. I think from what Colin said, I see in the report, it sounds like these elevations that we see here are the ones that the neighborhood saw at their meeting as well. Is that correct?
The original submitted ones, the last 2 slides. Oops, do I have to unmute again?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. The original submittal has what we ended up after 3 meetings with the neighborhood. It's the base body of the building is clapboard siding is similar to the front. And we were using the board and batten at the stair piece to break up the mass a little bit and articulate it. It grew out of a comment in one of the meetings of it looking very, I can't remember what the word was, boxy and something else. So we thought that was adding a little bit of detail to that stair piece because there's not a lot of other kind of massing articulation. We did the kind of the little brow or the step in the window. We're trying to mirror the kind of the existing rake in the roof line so that the roofs have a similar rake. If you look at the front on elevations, you can see that a little bit, how the roof breaks. If you see how the roof breaks a little bit at the edge, that's mirroring what's happening on the existing building. So we're trying to be consistent with the buildings that were there and respectful of that in the material palette, but give a little bit of a tweak to that piece. We're fine doing it with clapboard all the way. To be perfectly honest, it's more affordable to not have a second siding. But we had that originally, and then it was a response to some stuff from the neighbors. But if that's what UDC wants, we're fine with it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess I'll ask the obvious question, Paul. What can you comment on condition, or can you share your question about condition 6?
So on condition 6, when we were in the UDC meeting, the first question that came up about, and I thought that this was the primary concern, was the plantings down the linear walk between the buildings, which is a lit kind of nice walk with pavers. I understood the primary comment to be that on one side they were more of an evergreen hardy plant, and on the other side it was something that had a leaf that fell off and maybe wasn't going to hold up as well. Yet that's not in here. And kind of at the end there was a discussion about groupings of 2 versus 3 on the front plantings, and that's what's there. So I guess I had thought that we were doing one thing, and now it looks like we're not doing another. And I just want to be sure our team's not going somewhere we don't have to be going.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. Any other questions for registrants? If not, I will close the public hearing on this item and ask if there are questions for staff. Commissioner Solheim, thanks.
Thank you. Colin, were there any additional UDC items? I'm just thinking that the cladding and the landscape plan are very straightforward comments that we would often see, and as just a condition of approval for then, staff review. Mm-hmm. Is there a specific reason it would have to go back to UDC?
I don't know if there was a specific reason wishing for it to return to UDC for the final approval, other than just looking at those design elements that they had made conditions on. I was not at this particular meeting. So I have read the report from the UDC secretary, but it does not indicate the reason why UDC wanted them to return.
So I can speak a little bit to what I understand of their motion, Commissioner Solheim. I do think that there was some sensitivity on the part of the UDC to recognizing that they wanted to recommend changing the cladding on particularly the side elevations, but understood the applicant sharing with them that some of those design changes had originated from some neighborhood comments, and wanted to make sure that before the plans were kind of finalized, that they had a chance to just look at the applicant's original approach to that material placement on the side of the buildings compared to what the commission saw at their meeting when they were providing their advisory recommendation, just to be sure that they weren't sending the applicant down the wrong road in terms of making that recommendation to change that siding material.
Okay. So,
and I believe it was mostly concerning the siding material.
Okay. So if we were to approve send back, we could give kind of tailored direction as to say, we don't think, for example, the windows are not necessary, but provide final decision on cladding, no cladding sort of thing.
What I would recommend is that if there are specific conditions listed here that you do not feel that you feel you need to find standard 8 met, I should say, you could remove them before you approve this project. And that would ensure that the UDC's final approval is looking only at any remaining conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Revere.
Thank you, Chair. I have a receipt of an email from today, which it doesn't look like anyone else in this meeting received a copy of, say, for the applicant, that is from Jessica Vaughn, the UDC secretary, that from her perspective responds to both the cladding issue and the window issue. I do think that Director Tuttle did a good job explaining this, but if it would be helpful to the commission, I'm happy to read the handful of sentences here.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, thank you. I'll try to be quick. I want to provide a little more form to the UDC's action with regard to this item. Regarding the material transitions on the side elevations, the commission noted that they were sensitive to the neighborhood's comments to add a material transition along the side elevations. They did also note that typically this would be done to signify a change in building mass or plane. Ultimately, the commission did not want to act contrary to the neighborhood without seeing the alternative that they were requesting, that being the use of one material on the side elevations, which they collectively believed would be of a more common, simple design aesthetic, given that there was no articulation in the building wall. Regarding the condition to add windows, in the discussion with the UDC, it seemed like it was possible to add windows in the stairwell on both the side and front elevations. The intent was to add natural light in the stair while also breaking up the blank wall areas in these locations. If after further exploration, adding the windows is not possible, we can certainly revisit that condition. But given further advice, I don't know that UDC can revisit that if obviously that's a condition that remains following your action tonight. If I could also just, Chair, add a few comments at this juncture, then I won't ask to speak later. I have been in communication with the chair of the Neighborhood Association, Linda Scott, and Linda is aware of the fact that this was pulled from the consent agenda and the reason why. She had no objection to This being on the consent agenda, as I originally discussed with staff last week, and I think it's fair to say that the neighborhood at this point is agnostic on the window question, because the window issue, I can confirm, did not come up in the 3 neighborhood meetings that we had on this proposal. Lastly, let me just mention for the commission's benefit that the registrant that registered this evening in opposition, wishing to speak, is an existing tenant, an existing resident of 511 West Dayton Street. However, I have not had any personal communication with him, so I don't know the basis for his opposition. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Yeah, Megan, I having heard the email text from Jessica Vaughn, do you have any other comments on that, or is that?
No, I think that is a very a better articulated version of what I was trying to say my understanding of the issue was.
Thank you. Thanks. Alder Figueroa.
So I'm trying to follow the back and forth. So does this have to go back to UDC if you're not going to have, if you can accept the conditions or have no issues with the conditions?
I think that that's up, well, I'm not the secretary, but I think that that's up to this commission to decide. That's a proposed condition of approval. But I think that depending on the content of the motion, it could or it might not.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Thanks, Megan. Alder Yeager.
Sorry, I was moving ahead too fast. If we're not done with questions yet, I'll come later.
Yeah. Does anybody have any additional staff questions, or are we ready to articulate a motion? Go ahead, Alder Yeager.
Okay, so I will attempt to articulate a motion here. I'm going to move that the plan division recommend final approval, that the standards for conditional permit are met, and approve the request for a residential building complex in downtown residential 2 DR2 at 511 515 West Dayton Street, subject to the conditions recommended by the reviewing agencies, except that with regard to item number 5 under Urban Design Commission, that the requirement for a front elevation window be removed, and that the requirement to return this to the Urban Design Commission be deleted. And I can comment on that later.
There's a second. And just to, Megan, I just want to make sure, I think that the Plan Commission is the final approving body on a conditional use application. So it wouldn't be recommend to approve, it would be approval. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay.
It would be to move approval.
Okay. Alder Yeager, is that, I think you suggested it would be recommended for approval. So I just want to make sure that you know it's an approval, it's a final, that it would be the Plan Commission's approval.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Fully aware of that. And if I can speak on the motion.
Wait, Alder Glenn, was that your second? I think I might have. All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second from Alder Glenn. And now Alder Yeager, please.
Yes. Listening to Jessica Vaughn's commentary that helps clarify the situations and so forth, we can see and I can understand why the UDC recommended the consistent siding, since there isn't a real reason to have a break at those points. It's fairly straightforward. We've seen the renderings from the thing. We've seen the reasoning for avoiding a window in an area where it probably doesn't make sense in bike storage on that front elevation. They've already moved to provide us with some indication of how they can use windows for the stairways and so forth on the side elevations. And so I think it's so straightforward how to carry forward the recommendations from UDC, which is the advisory body here, that there isn't a real necessity to return it to the UDC.
Thanks, Alder Uger. Megan?
Thank you, Chair. I have just an observation for Alder Uger if he is open to considering this as part of his motion. But typically when the Urban Design Commission provides conditions of approval for a project and do not wish to see the project back, they vest the final approval authority with the Urban Design Commission Secretary. So I think if you would be open to, as you noted in your motion, saying that this conditional use is approved subject to the conditions except with regard to item 5, and deleting what is condition 3, that the project return to UDC for final approval, that we maybe consider changing condition 3, that the project changes may be approved by the Urban Design Commission Secretary, ultimately staff.
Oh, that makes, yes, understand the administrative process. That makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
And I agree to amend the motion to that degree if the second approves.
Alder Glenn, you're good? All right. So we'll amend the motion accordingly. Okay, thanks, Colin. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand what's happening with the side window requirement. Is that still part of the motion, a condition, or did that get eliminated too?
That did not get eliminated in my motion.
Okay, that was my understanding. Thank you.
Okay. Other discussion on the pending motion? All right, I think we'll call the vote. Is there objection to unanimous approval for Alder Uger's motion? Seeing none, we'll record the motion as approved. So thank you. Thanks for the good discussion from everyone. We are done with our numbered agenda items and we'll move to our secretary's report. Oh, secretary's report.
Sorry, I think that normally that comes after member announcements, so I wasn't ready.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm looking at I printed it out. So
yeah, no, you're right. It was surprised me. Okay, a couple quick things. One is that I'll note your upcoming matters list for your first meeting in December includes a lengthy list of items, many of which are zoning code changes that continue our work related to the Housing Forward initiative that we have talked about a number of times this year. At a recent meeting, we had some conversation alluding to some forthcoming recommendations about some changes to our transit-oriented development overlay standards, and specifically to some of the auto-oriented uses that are permitted within that overlay district. Encourage you, if you have not had a chance to take a look at these, to dive in a little bit and let us know in advance if you have any questions about what's proposed there related to some of the projects that you've seen as a commission that we can be prepared to talk about. Otherwise, there are other changes here that are recommended to create a new type of housing, a new missing middle housing category called cottage courts, and will help us to continue to discuss those housing options that can be available citywide. So I'll just draw your attention to those items for your December 1st meeting. The other thing I'll note, I had shared with the chair earlier today that at the council meeting last week, the council introduced an item to appoint a new school district representative to the Plan Commission. This is going to be confirmed at the November 25th meeting. And assuming approval, the Plan Commission representative would be Scott Chiek, which is a member of the administration overseeing facilities planning. Scott was at your special meeting a couple of weeks ago talking about the referendum implementation plans. So we'll keep you updated when he has been confirmed, and we're ready to onboard him and have him start joining your meetings.
Thanks, Megan. And now we have time for member announcements, communications, and business items. If anybody has anything they'd like to share. Alder Glenn. Thanks.
I just, since everybody's here, I would have let Megan know, but I am gone between the 20th and 30th of November. So just for alternate purposes, I'll be gone.
Okay, I don't think we should have a meeting between the 20th and 30th of November.
I
but-
heard you say November 25th. It just freaked me out for a second.
Oh, that is a council meeting. Yes, you're right.
Oh,
There's a council meeting.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you come back, we'll have a meeting on the 1st though, Alderman. So, all right. Anything else? If not, is there a motion and a second to adjourn? Commissioner Solheim, thank you. Commissioner Heck, thank you. Any objection to unanimous approval? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good night.